Okay, so let's think about this for a second. Plants, they're stuck in one spot their entire lives, right? So how on earth do they manage one of the most fundamental parts of life, finding a partner and having kids? It's a pretty amazing story of stillness, but also incredible strategy. Let's dive into how they pull it off.
So this is the big question, isn't it? It's the puzzle that has shaped just about every flower you've ever seen. I mean, how do you solve the problem of long-distance romance when you can't take a single step? Well, let's find out. Before we get into all the clever solutions, we really need to understand the core problem. For any plant, making it to the next generation means they have to get around the fact that they're, well, stationary. And it all boils down to one absolutely critical process.
And here we have it, pollination. This simple definition is really the heart of the whole story. It's all about getting the male part, the pollen, from the anther over to the female part, the stigma. But how it makes that journey, that's where all the ingenious strategies come into play.
Now, what's really cool is that plants have basically evolved two major game plans to get this done. You've got self-pollination, which is kind of the stay-at-home option, and then you have cross-pollination, which is a journey between two totally different plants. Two completely different answers to the very same problem.
So let's start with that first strategy. You can think of this one as the reliable, low-risk option. It's kind of like the home body of the plant world, a strategy that pretty much guarantees results because it doesn't need any outside help.
Self-pollination is, exactly what it sounds like. The pollen just has to move from an anther to a stigma on the very same plant, sometimes even inside the very same flower. It's the ultimate DIY approach to reproduction, ensuring you make a new generation without depending on anything or anyone else.
And this is where we see the big trade-off. The pros are obvious, right? It's a sure thing, it keeps the family traits perfectly intact, and the plant saves a ton of energy because it doesn't need to make flashy flowers or sugary nectar. But, and this is a big but, there's a huge downside. With no genetic mixing, weaknesses can pile up over generations, leading to weaker plants and absolutely no chance for cool new adaptations.
All right, now for the other side of the coin. If self-pollination is the safe bet, then cross-pollination, well, that's the great gamble. It's way more complicated, it's a lot less certain, but the potential payoff for the species is just massive. Now, this is where things get a little more adventurous. For cross-pollination to work, a tiny grain of pollen has to leave its home and travel, sometimes over huge distances, to land on the stigma of a completely different plant. That journey is the whole challenge.
And yet, it turns out that nature favors cross-pollination. Yep, despite all the risks, all the wasted pollen, having to rely on outside help, this is the strategy that nature overwhelmingly prefers. And why is that? Because all that genetic mixing leads to healthier, more adaptable offspring. It's what drives evolution forward. This table just lays out that core conflict perfectly. Look at the certainty, high for self-pollination but low for cross. And the cost? Self-pollination is super economical, while cross-pollination is really expensive. You waste so much pollen. But the real prize, the reason for the gamble, is right there in the offspring line. Adaptability and new varieties are only possible with cross-pollination.
Okay, so if cross-pollination means the pollen has to travel, how in the world does it get from point A to point B? Well, plants have recruited some pretty amazing helpers, let's call them matchmakers, to do all the hard work. And this is where flower design gets really, really smart.
Just check out this comparison. Everything about a flower is built for a specific matchmaker. A wind-pollinated flower? It doesn't need to look good. It's small, it's dull, it's got no scent. But what it does have is tons and tons of super light pollen, just hoping the wind carries it to the right place. An insect-pollinated flower, on the other hand, is a full-blown advertisement. It's big, it's bright, it smells amazing, and it offers up a sugary nectar reward to attract its personal courier service.
And you can see this perfectly in these two plants. On the left, we've got maize, or corn. Those long, feathery things we call silks, those are actually giant, sticky stigmas, designed like a net to catch any pollen just drifting by on the breeze. Now look at the sweet pea on the right. It's a work of art. The colorful, complex petals are built to guide a bee to the perfect spot to pick up and drop off pollen. The form just perfectly follows the function.
So the pollen has made its incredible journey. It has landed on the right stigma. Mission accomplished, right? Well, not quite. The journey is over, but now the real magic is about to begin.
Fertilization. This is the grand finale. It's the moment that all that male genetic material from the pollen grain finally unites with the female genetic material waiting in the ovule.
This is the instant a new seed is actually created.
And in flowering plants, it's not just one simple fusion. It's this incredible thing called double fertilization. First, the pollen grain grows this tiny little tube all the way down into the ovary. As it goes, it releases 2 sperm nuclei. The first one fertilizes the egg. That creates the embryo, the actual baby plant. But the second one does something totally unique. It fuses with other cells to create the endosperm, which is basically the packed lunch for the baby embryo to eat while it grows.
This diagram lets us see that whole journey up close. You can literally trace the path of that pollen tube as it burrows its way down toward the ovule. And right there at the bottom, you can see those 2 separate fusions happening. It's just an incredibly efficient system, isn't it? Make the baby and pack its lunch, all in one go.
So, once that double fertilization is complete, the flower's main job, looking pretty and attracting pollinators, is done. But the plant's work isn't over yet. In fact, a whole new, dramatic transformation is just getting started.
The show is over. Those bright petals, they just wither and fall away. The stamens that made all that pollen, not needed anymore. All of the plant's energy now gets redirected from the outward beauty of the flower to the inside job of growing the next generation.
And this is the final amazing chapter of that transformation. The ovary, that little protective chamber where the fertilization happened, it starts to swell and ripen. It becomes the fruit. And inside, every single one of those fertilized ovules develops into a seed, each one carrying a tiny embryo and its food supply, all ready to start the whole cycle over again.
So that fruit in your hand, it's not just a snack. It's the result of this incredible story, a story of stillness and strategy, of risk and reward. It's the story of a tiny pollen grain's epic journey and the remarkable transformation it sets off. It's the story of how life, even when it can't move an inch, always finds a way.